Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Literary Lounge with me, Dawn Bates, here in Radio Cardiff. I'm recording from home today, so we have a bit of an oven down at the studio. So we're being protected by our wonderful team there. And I have an amazing guest with me today. Her name is called Stay, not the Stay. We're talking Stacey. I was just going to say Stacey Jackson. Um, And when I hear that, I'm just thinking you should be a member of the Jackson Five. But you know, it's amazing. There's so many pop stars and celebrities with the surname Jackson. Do you find that yourself, Stacey?
I get it a lot when, like, I have four kids, so sometimes I'll be, if we're a group of five, I'll make a reservation, at a restaurant or something, but yeah, we're the Jackson Five, like I
Nice.
get that a lot. I
Gets
also get,
boring
like,
after
I'm
a while.
sorry, Miss
Sorry about that.
Jackson, everyone sings that song to me. I mean,
I
and
love
it's
that
funny because
song though.
two of my boys are actually getting married, one next week and another one next year, and their fiancés are going to take the last name Jackson, and they're like all excited about it because everyone's like singing, the "Sorry, Miss Jackson" songs. They're like, they're getting used to the new name, which is exciting. Yeah,
That is
I don't mind.
exciting.
Yeah, I don't mind Jackson. I, I, it's everybody asks me, like, what's your stage name? I'm like, it's Stacey Jackson. It's a nice
Yeah.
name. Why would I change it?
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you change your name? And this thing you didn't you wrote under your own name as well. So you chose to write your book,
Okay, fine.
which I'm going to ask you to give us the title and a description of, because I always find, even though I'm the writer and I'm the author and I know the names of my books and what I've written about, and you say
Yeah.
that to the host, sometimes what we feel about our books in the moment, it evolves. So I'd love for you to share with
Oh
us
yeah.
what the name of your book is. Not testing you to see whether you remember, but what you feel about your book and how
It's
you
a
would
long name.
describe it, and what how you would describe it right here now in this moment.
Well, okay, so it's called How a Gangster Rapper Made Me a Better Mom. So it's a mouthful. In fact, one of my kids actually came up with that name. And it was brilliant because it actually depicts how, um, you know, a working mom or a mom who's trying to, develop her career and juggle her family, how she realizes that if she's doing something that she loves so much and she's so passionate about, that she's just a happier person. She's in a happier
Mm.
place. She doesn't have one of these, crappy jobs that she comes home and she's in a yucky mood. She comes home and is trying to face the day with a smile, and
Yeah.
that's why I guess, it's the story is loosely based on my life and my ultimate collaboration with Snoop Dogg. And so, I think that was life changing for me. And many people along the way had said, you really need to write this book. And I'm like, I don't write books. I write music, I write songs. No, you have to write a book. This is just too good. And even over the years, I've been asked to be on reality television shows and stuff. But because I am a mom of four, it was an absolute no to have cameras in my house and watch my journey and also watch my family at the same time. So I guess ultimately I finally said, okay, I'm gonna write the book. You're right, I'm gonna write the book. And I have a friend who is a journalist. She was a former journalist at the Times and then moved on to the Daily Mail. And she'd kind of been following my career for a while. And I said, I got to write this book. I just to buckle down and do it. Will you help me? Because obviously I'd never had the experience of writing a book. And it was an incredible experience for the two of us. I mean, she went off and wrote stuff. I came off and wrote stuff. We collaborated. We met all the time pre-COVID, and then obviously became on Zoom. And she really taught me a lot about writing. And I think the best thing that I learned was to just, especially when you're trying to fictionalize a story that is based obviously on you anyway, is to just be is to just write how you speak. It's really capture
Thank you.
how I speak. So the voice in there is how I talk. I swear a lot. I sometimes speak in different languages. I speak French, I speak Yiddish, I speak a bunch of languages, and I'll throw it in there because that's who I am. And I think Ruth was Ruth Bothwell's her married name. I can't remember what she went under in my. She was my co-writer. I cannot remember for the life of me her maiden name. Elkins. Oh, and she
you just made the dog jump.
She was very instrumental in at least putting me over the, like motivating to get me to do something, to sit down and actually write a plan for where the book would go. And it through that journey, it changed and it changed again and it changed again. And then COVID happened. So we had to rewrite a few bits and bobs as well. And, so it was a few years before, any editor even looked at it. And I mean, it's like with any art, you never feel like you're ever really ready to take it to public, right? But I just had to sort of jump in the water and say, okay, this is what I wrote, and this is my story, and I
let
feel
me
very
jump
grateful.
in there.
Yeah, of course.
Because what we've just done is we've had you introduce yourself in one of the most natural ways, rather than listing a lot of job titles. And I always feel that it's so much nicer to hear someone explain who they are and a little bit about their journey than go, this is Stacey, and bang, 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 these are all the job titles, because we allow people to relate to us more when we're telling our story, because we can relate to being a mother. We can relate to, having a friend helping us out with a project or motivating us to actually take something into fruition and making a result from it. And the fact that you speak in multiple languages, I mean, likewise, I speak multiple languages myself. And sometimes when I hear people introduce me through job titles and the things I've done, and all these accolades, I sometimes think, gosh, I'd really love to meet that person. Because I forget half of the things that I've done. They've done research on me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that too. And sometimes, do you find that, because you are a very accomplished woman, you've reinvented yourself, and not everybody has obviously worked with a rapper, Snoop Dogg, as you mentioned. Which must have been a fascinating journey in and of itself. I mean, I used to listen to his music quite regularly. Yeah, well, yeah. Sometimes I'm there with Snoop Dogg and Warren G. And that was my vibe growing up. And it's, I find myself very rarely going back there for whatever reason. And then sometimes I'll find it with some jungle tunes like the Drop Top Caddy, and I'll put that on. I'm like, oh my God, why haven't listened to this for ages? But it's,
and you probably still remember every lyric.
Every lyric. Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on there about writing songs and writing books, because you're a songwriter, but you're also a pop star. Can you tell us about the journey? How did that come about? And what the process of writing songs is like for you?
You know what? It was a bit of a fluke how it all happened, really. I mean, I was in band since I was like 15, and I was in an original band at that age, writing music, writing original songs, and I always prided myself on being a writer, being a songwriter. And then through the years, I joined a few bands, and obviously, people wanted covers, and it just kind of like was in the industry, but on the periphery. And I was actually in the television industry in New York for about 10 years, working behind the scenes in the PR sort of side. And I loved it, but I always had a passion for singing. And then when I moved to London 26 years ago, my partner said to me, "Why don't you just build the PR?" My business partner build the PR side in the UK for us, because we were based in New York. And I'm like, I have two young kids. I'm coming to London for a couple of years. I'm going to be back 26 years later. I still haven't gone fully back yet.
Famous last words.
Yeah. But, and I said, I'm going to give it a go to just see whether or not I can just sing for now, because at least that was manageable around the kids. And so I found a vocal coach, and through him at the time, I have a different coach now. He introduced me to a group of guys, and I joined the band and performed various places here. And then I said to him, like, I always had a dream to do an album, originally of original songs, but at the time I was doing covers. And he said, actually, I've just set up a new production company. Why don't we put something together? I said, it's a great idea. And then I thought, what the heck am I going to do with an album? I'm going to put it, this is on CD back in the day. I'm going to put it in my drawer. Like, how am I going to get radio play? Like, I'm doing this just for myself. Like, I'm an artist. Like, any artist wants to be out there, wants to be in a gallery, wants to be, so like yeah. And I felt like if I was going to be doing something, especially as an artist, you want people to feel, you want to make people have some sort of emotion. You want them to kind of be on the journey with you with whatever you're doing. So for me, if it's the book, you want them to understand the journey of Stephanie. If it's writing music, you want them to understand the meaning behind the song, And so originally we did a covers album, and I said, why don't we do this for a charity? Why don't we affiliate ourselves with a group of musicians who could benefit from someone like me who's passionate about, well, obviously I had the PR experience as well, about music, and also see if I can get it out there on that, with that route. So I aligned myself with a charity called Music for Youth, and they basically, you probably heard about the schools proms here in London at Royal Albert Hall. I was going to say Lincoln Center.
Yeah, no, a friend of mine used to sing at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, and basically I would go from city to city and be an adjudicator for some of these young artists who were given platforms to be given, like they played at these festivals where they could be out in front of an audience. And I thought it was amazing. So I actually handpicked various artists and on my dime bussed them to London to record on this album. So the whole album is made up of covers of mostly Motown and rock songs.
Nice.
And I reproduced them. I'm vocaling it. And I had, 15-year-old strings and a whole school choir and a drummer and guitarists and all from different walks of life from different places in the UK. Anyway, obviously that got a lot of buzz. And one of the songs off that record got remixed. And there I was sitting between Lady Gaga and the Scissor Sisters on the dance charts, and like in the top 10.
Surreal.
So it was kind of surreal. And so at this point, I now have a hit record, right, off of a charity album. So I started getting calls from producers and saying, your voice really is suitable for this genre of music, this dance, kind of music. Would you be interested in writing original songs? I'm like, yes, this is what I do. I'm like, oh my God.
Say yes, figure it out.
Later, exactly. Door opens, go in. So I went in, and I guess the rest was history. And it was life-changing from then, because there I am, like literally touring. I was like playing festivals, prides. I was even playing clubs off the side of the motorways. Like I was literally putting in everything that I could for this.
With two kids.
At that point, I had already had my fourth.
Yeah.
So
how did you juggle this? So, you're writing songs, you're performing, you're organizing events.
Yeah.
You're a mum to four. We have a fur baby in there as well, just for
no, he came much later after my last my last child batted her eyelashes at my husband, and that was it. We got it done.
And did husband come along as well?
On the tour? No. Thank goodness for my mother, for the grandma. She was great, because my father had passed away, and which, by the way, interestingly enough, was the premise for the song I wrote and ultimately collaborated with Snoop Dogg. So she was now widowed, and she would come over a lot to help me with the kids. And obviously we ultimately
Priceless.
had to, we had to hire someone, someone like a nanny or an au pair who would help us as well, because with the 4 kids and I was off on the tour, I needed someone to, basically run point. There was 4 kids at one point in 4 different schools, all
Gosh,
age between 2 and 14, and it was hilarious. But luckily,
very
my
blessed.
husband held down the fort. My mother held down the fort. I was very lucky. But then, obviously, if you read the book, you know that not all help is great help,
No.
and no matter how much you rely on someone. But luckily,
Yes.
my mother, truth be told, she was the one that actually was suspicious of the culprit. And yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of truth to this journey. So it was not just, I didn't just wake up one morning and become a pop star. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of juggling.
Absolutely.
And I'm very proud of what I've done. I obviously I haven't really performed in the last couple of years on a big stage. And so it's been almost 2 years now. My mom had a big heart attack while she was in London. In fact, while I was performing on tour. So I was like,
You
right,
okay now?
this might, yeah. Now she's absolutely fine. She's
Good,
stable.
good.
Thank you. But
Okay.
now, so I'm I am an empty nester, but I think, I'm now looking back at that part of my life. I'm performing this week, in fact, but more of a stripped back kind of, acoustic version of some of my records. It's not as intense as it was with all the dancers and, which I kind of like. But I'm a girl of all trades, and I have so many side hustles going on with the book. I've got a podcast, and so I keep myself so busy. And with my 4 kids living in 4 different places in the world, I'm always on a plane. So I have a
Mm,
lot of time to write. So that's
good.
really where I focus.
I, I love hearing all of that, because one of the things that I really wanted when I set up my first business, before I had children, was the legacy that I'm leaving for them, the example that I'm setting for them, that
Yeah,
it wasn't just about being a mother that was of service to the children, but
right,
about being of service to my higher self and
right.
demonstrating that if you have a dream, it doesn't matter who you are, if you go after it, it may not be crystal clear at the very beginning, but you
Yeah,
know you have to be there, you know you have to do this, you know
yeah,
you have to write this. And if you say yes, you'll figure it out.
yeah,
And I've
yeah. I
learned
mean, the
that
minute you
saying
make a
no,
commitment,
yeah.
you, once you commit, you're committed. I
Mm,
always do that. I find myself sometimes I get in trouble a little bit because I always say yes. They always say to they always what's the saying? It's like, if you want something done, ask a busy person, right?
absolutely.
And so I have trouble saying no. So I do everything. I try,
Yes,
and I say yes even before I know that I can do it. And I find a way to do it because
absolutely.
I'm adventurous, and I'm also probably some sort of sadist or whatever.
I find that sometimes saying the loudest yes and the most uncertain times actually brings us out of our truest self.
Mm-hmm.
And there
Agree.
might be misadventures along the way, but hey, you know, who doesn't love a misadventure?
No, of
Um,
course, of course.
so I think one of the questions that's going to be on the listeners, you know, one of the things that the listeners are really going to want to know is what was it like working with Snoop? Now, a lot of people will imagine, I mean, he's really chilled out. He's changed a lot over the years by the looks of things. And one of the reasons why lost touch with a lot of that music was, as you know, when you're listening to your music all the time, whether it was like for me, it was like I love a lot of techno and like deep funky house.
Right.
And
But
I
it
love
probably wasn't
my
always like
stoner
that.
songs. No, I've always been into EDM, as they call it
Yeah.
nowadays. I had to
Yeah.
get a translation for that. I love my acid techno, and I used to be a '90s raver here in Britain. And my
Okay.
listeners know that in
I
my
could see
first
that.
book, yeah, they made the hashtag Gabba Girly for me, and in my first book, I knew that. Well, I've always known that I'm going to be hugely successful in my own terms.
Right.
And So I wrote my first book to preempt all of the people that I'd met. Well, I know Dawn from the raving days, and you should have seen her. No, no. So I was like, you know what? Go read my book. You'll find all about it. And the thing for me when we're setting out on our journey, we don't know who we're going to meet. There's been people that I've met that have really surprised me. So what was that first meeting like with Snoop and then coming about to work with him?
Well, so when I had written the album, I had this one particular song that I wrote based on a crazy dream I had about my dad who visited me in the dream, and a whole bunch of other wacky spiritual
We like the
things
wacky and
happened.
spiritual.
Yeah, it was too strange. Just things going on in the house that were weird, and I just knew that my father was trying to tell me something, you
Mm.
know. And so I wrote this song called "Live It Up," based on this dream. And my manager at the time, because now I'd had a hit record with that, charity thing. I said, why don't we get one of these music for youth up and coming, young rap artists to do the rap on this record? And Steve said to me, no, you've already had a hit record. You need somebody who's already established. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, I could get to some of the gangster rap guys because I'd worked with them in another life. I'm sure I can reach out to them. I'm like, okay, yeah, right. Everyone in the music industry, they
Yeah.
all want to help you. 5 days later, I was on a plane to Boston. He sent Snoop the record and he said, love it. Yeah, tell her to come meet me. I was like, are you effing kidding me? Like, I mean, yeah, it's great that he liked the song, but I think I caught him at the time when he was just about to branch out and do everything, which I
Yeah,
love Snoop for, by the way. Talk about repotting yourself. He apparently
absolutely.
is one of the hardest working first guy to the office and the last guy out.
Yeah.
And he's obviously his whole collaboration also with Martha Stewart, and he did the Olympics. He was hosting the Olympics. I mean, he does everything because
Mm,
there's something so relatable about him. So I really
mm.
got very lucky when 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 we collaborated, and I was very not just lucky. I was also very insistent that because we could have sent parts back and forth, via the internet, and he could have just wrote a rap and sent it back. But I was like, if I'm going to collaborate, I want to really collaborate. I want him to know who I am. I want him to know what the
Yes.
song is about, why I wrote the song, and why it's important to have a rapper, and not just a rapper, but a rapper that's also lived a completely, utterly different journey, but is about the same age as me.
Yep.
And I found that to be quite key. And um, in how we related to each other when we were in the room and talking about our kids, parenting. I'm like, oh my God, I actually have stuff in common with
And
Snoop Dogg.
references you make, he would get, and vice versa.
Yeah, we're both Gen X,
Yeah.
and it was very helpful. And we found the commonality with that. And actually, so it was brilliant. Like my experience was not just about writing a good song. It was the whole journey to get there. And I think that was one of the pinnacles of my journey, but it probably wasn't even my best song. I mean, I've subsequently wrote other songs that have done better out there, but I was just, it was kind of like the beginning of my big journey, I guess, was my collaboration with Snoop Dogg. And he was awesome. Awesome. It took a while to finally get it sorted because he had a bajillion other commitments. So it was like I was up for like probably 40 hours by the
Mm.
time I actually went to his makeshift studio and recorded the record. I mean, I can't believe I must have had like 6,000 cups of coffee. I didn't know at any time it could have been 4 a.m. where he just could have knocked on my door and said, I'm ready, let's go. And it
So
was
what would be
ridiculous.
the first song that we would be playing for our listeners today then, based on where we've got to in the conversation?
Well, okay, well, we got to in the conversation. You might want to play the song I did with Snoop Dogg, which is the original song, Live It Up. And so that was from circa 2011. So it's kind of a long time ago now for me. Before we get into the soundtrack of this story. So
Okay.
yeah, I guess I would
So
go with that.
Okay, so this is a song now from Stacey Jackson. Or is it Stay Jackson? Which one do you prefer? Or are you happy
Stacey
with
Jackson. Yeah,
Stacey
yeah.
Jackson and Snoop Dogg, Live It Up? Okay, so now we're back and we've had the news and the weather and the ads for the show for today's show. Um, you've got I know that we've just talked about your journey, of the transformation that you've been through. Um, and you wrote another song called Bombshell, which was really about carving out your new self. And we touched on that with Snoop's journey as well.
Yeah.
And what would you say was that defining point, or was there that point where you've gone, you know what, I can't do this life anymore. I want to do this. Was there one of those moments, or was it just a natural progression through?
Looking back, I could say, if I had to listen to another Sesame Street song, you'd have to shoot me. I loved being a mummy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I did all the PTA stuff. Like literally, I was at every meeting. I was the one with the bake sale, the one serving pins at the sports days. Like I did it, and
I think I've lost
wonderful.
you. No, you're back. No, we're stalled. 1 second. Are you there?
With that, sorry, can you hear me? I don't know, things breaking up a little
I
bit.
lost you.
Hello? You're
Hang on one
frozen.
second. Yeah, you've frozen as well. Let me. So you're the one at the PTA. You're serving the Pims, maybe having a sip or two as well as you're serving it. If you're anything like me, it's serve one, sip one. And oh, I do love a Pims. It is very
Serve
refreshing, I
one,
have to
sip
admit.
two, serve one,
Well,
sip two.
I try and stay as sober as possible, which will make one or two of my friends laugh because I have certain friends that I feel safe to drink with. I never
Mm,
drink when I go out, for different reasons. And so you're in this process looking back and
yeah.
being the mum who's fed up listening to the same songs over again, reading the same books, no doubt, over again at bedtime. And so you were just about to come in and say what that moment was before we had some reception
Technical difficulties.
interruptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't an actual moment. I think it was a natural progression for me. I think I always knew that I was going to do something at some point when the kids got,
Mm,
a little older. So it wasn't like, okay, now's the time I'm going back to do it. It really was a natural progression. But like I said, when I look back at it, I could tell you that was a great chapter of my life.
mm,
I would never, I would always
no,
do that again. That was a choice I'm super happy that I made. Um, but yeah, I think life is not linear.
no.
Things come up all the time and doors open, and I'm a big believer in walking into the door, like, and seeing what's there. I think life is to live. And I know, not to sound dark or anything, but even in the song that you're going to play next, a Bombshell, when I was writing it actually is, this kind of sort of mortality question. It's like, what am I going to leave behind for my
Mm,
kids
the
when
legacy.
yeah. And, I know that when I'm gone, that even my grandkids, they're going to look back at my music, whatever I do, my books, podcasts. And I hope, if anything, it inspires them and sends them positive messages that you can do anything you want to do at any stage and any time of your life, because life is short. So
Mm,
live every moment of it. And that's the message I'm hoping, not just my own kids, and maybe to inspire anyone who actually is, touched by my art somehow. Because that's who I am, and I get to express that empathy and that, you know that part of me through my art. And I'm very fortunate that I get to do it, because
mm.
I don't think I would be me if I didn't have that. ability to be able to express it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely does. And it reminds me of a phrase that one of my recent guests, Helen Gibson, MBE, said, in which she's got a book, Go for Goosebumps. And we were discussing saying yes. She says, say yes to the wormholes.
Okay.
And I've always said the sky is not the limit. If someone tells you that the sky is the limit, they are limiting themselves, because beyond the sky, we do have galaxies. We have black holes and wormholes. And I've always said, grab that Hessian mat and go down them like you're on a helter-skelter, and actually go and figure out what's going on out there, and just have the biggest joyous ride of your life. So when she came on the show and I was reading her book, and she said, say yes to the wormholes, it was just something that I find resonates with a lot of us that have said yes and been open to receiving all of these wonderful opportunities in life, and figuring out as we go along. And carving out a new version of self can be challenging for a lot of people.
I'm sure it is. I mean, I
was going to say, have you when people have read your book, how a gangster rapper made you a better mother, what kind of stories or messages have you received from your readers about how it's helped them become a better person, carve out a new version of themselves?
Oh, that's interesting. I've gotten different comments. People picked up different parts of the book. Yes, they all got the inspirational, she's going to do what it takes to make it, even at her age. And, I was in my 40s when I had my first hit record. So that's I guess the underlying message. But also people talked about how I dealt with grief in the book, because, right off the bat, this is one of the easiest ways, low-hanging fruit to fictionalize it, was kill the husband off on the first page in a helicopter crash. So I made her specifically a single mummy. So that even gave her more challenges, to overcome. And I think that the humor and the love and her ambition and her desire to also keep his legacy alive helped a lot of people through their own grief. And I didn't actually set out for it to be that, because like my true story, obviously my husband's very much alive and we're very much in love, and 33 some years later, no plans to kill him off yet. But yeah, so I that was a surprise to me, and how I dealt with the grief. And reading it back again after I heard those comments, I was like, wow, I mean, that must have been, I want to give credit to Ruth on that, because like I said, I did not set out to have him not be around. Like originally we wrote the book with him being in the book, with the husband being alive. So I learned a lot about that. I pulled on probably my own grief with the death of my father, and I was close to him, and so I guess that was helpful in how I was able to, get that or emote that feeling in my voice. But definitely that was a big surprise to me, was how the book handled the grief part. So I hope I helped some people in some way, whether it was through humor or, through trying to hold on to the memory, however people felt from it, was probably the biggest thing for me in the book.
Nice.
That answers the question.
It does. It beautifully answers it. And I think what we'll do, we'll take a pause and we'll go and listen to your song Bombshell, about carving out your new self. I think that would be a good one, and the handling of grief. So this is Bombshell by our very special and lovely guest, Stacey. Wow. So there's been a lot that we've covered so far, and I want to take us right back to the beginning when you introduced yourself, because you said something there that you write how you speak. And one of the things when I'm coaching a lot of my clients to write their books, like you had your friend Rachel there that was helping you.
Ruth.
Yeah. Sorry, Ruth. I'm normally pretty good with names, but
I'm terrible with names, as you can tell.
It's always about writing how you speak, because when you do show up on radio shows or TV interviews or podcasts, or you're speaking on stage and people get to meet you in person, if you have written a book that's not genuine to yourself, there's that disconnect. And the amount of people that I was talking with one chap about a year ago, and he was saying, I was so excited to read this book and like I really got it and I love listening to his podcast. And then I read the book and I was like, oh, and it fell flat for him. And he said he's found it really difficult to re-listen to the
Interesting.
podcast. Do you feel that even though the book is fictionalized, do you and you've obviously the greatest fiction has a lot of truth in it. What would you say some of your greatest truths in the story? I mean, you've got another song that I'm really looking forward to playing, and I'm glad that these are radio proof, because
They are.
I'm actually going to be doing a literary lounge unfiltered, because a lot of my songs that I want to play I can't play on community radio. Thank you, Ofcom. But you have another song coming, What Will She Do Next?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to see how those two elements play into one another there.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, it's funny what you mentioned about when the author's voice is known, and then you get a book and you're trying to picture it in the author's voice, and then there is a disconnect if it doesn't jive, right? So I actually did the audiobook and I narrated the audiobook in my own voice, and it is how I speak. And so if anything, it's definitely true to or not the word true because it's fictionalized, but I mean, it's authentic, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, to answer the question, I think it's probably her relationships with her kids, which is what's kind of special and the most true for me. The love, what she'd given up for them, how they're also weirdly embarrassed by her, but also very proud of her, at the same time. They want, their friends are looking at the mom in a different way. I think there's a part in it where like she finds messages calling her a MILF and all that. And so I think the relationships between her and her kids, her and her mom, her and her posse, like her best friend, and even the guy that drives her around on tour, she has these connections with people, and I think I really did maintain the authenticity of those connections. Whether the story took it a totally different turn and was fictionalized, the connections and the relationship were always authentic. And so yes, there is that song that you'll probably play again or play now. It's called What Will She Do Next? And it's about a mom, in this case, who embarrasses the kids because she just wants to live her life. And but how do you do it at the same time without, these kids are teenage boys, like, so you have this little girl who wants to maybe be like the mom, but the boys are like, oh my God, what is she doing? So I think that song is it's very humorous as well. And I think it really depicts the perspective of the kids in the book. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you'll get a kick out of that record too.
Let's listen to it right now then, shall we? This is What Will She Do Next? And if my boys are listening, they're probably asking the same question. Yeah, let's go and listen to that now. Okay, so I have a question that is probably slightly controversial.
Okay.
Apparently people say that I'm controversial. I have no idea. I don't think I am. I think I just
throw it at me.
Okay. You juggle life between the US and the UK and probably many other countries. And one of the things I find here in Britain is we don't dream big enough. Whereas in the States, they have very large dreams. And there tends to be an element of tall poppy syndrome here in Britain. and
100%.
people say, "Oh, be realistic." Now, I hate that word. I think that if I was going to do Room 101, the word realistic would have to go in there because
Yeah.
realistic is just somebody else's limitations. Do
Yes.
you find you've already said 100%, so you've already preempted the question, so probably moving on. But what is it? Do you find you get more support and more um, celebration in the States than you do here in Britain? And is Britain more of your place to come back and just rest, recuperate, recharge, to then go back and really live life large out in the States?
You know, I I don't I don't do it like that because
Okay.
my career took off here. So I owe so much to
Okay.
the fans and the people here in Britain. I've toured the UK extensively over the years, more so than the US and Canada, which I have toured before. But I would say I know I've been up to Blackpool and I've been everywhere. And the people in the UK were so accepting and so and engaging, and particularly, me getting out in front of the LGBTQ community. They were also very accepting of me. You remember, I was newish. They stuck me on tour with people my age. So like I was on tour with Rosala and Angie Brown, and like
Nice.
as if if I had already come up in the 90s, which was a very smart move for my management to do. But so I kind of like just plopped in there. That's how I felt. And it felt natural to be
Okay.
here. I don't know. And because when I got into the dance music scene, it was only just getting bigger in the US. The dance music scene in Europe and the UK was much more prevalent.
Mm.
Um, from where I was in the US in particular, rock and country were like the prominent and prevalent music, that you heard on the radio. Dance music was obviously in the 90s. It came up in the clubs and in the fitness clubs and whatever, and my music was played in there, even in the 2000s. But yes, I get the whole poppy syndrome. It is terrifying because people don't love to see, but maybe because I wasn't really one of theirs,
Yes.
that they were more accepting. Like,
Mm.
well, she's not one of us anyway, so like let's give her a boost. I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't figure that out, but I don't I'm very grateful to the experience I had living here, which is exactly why after 26 years I'm still here. And I find it very hard to break my connection here because this is like my people are here. My Not
Mm.
just my fans, but my friends, my best friends, people also in the industry, people I work with, my co-hosts for shows that I've been doing on TV and on social media. And I like when I go back to the US, like they treat me more like a successful Brit than a successful
Okay.
American, if that
Okay.
makes sense. And I'm grateful to that. I feel like I found my niche, and maybe I'm a little bit like feel that that I'm like a what's that expression? I'm a bigger fish in a smaller pond. When I go to
Mm.
America, I'm a tiny little fish in like this massive ocean,
Yes.
and and so maybe I'm just in my comfort zone here. I feel very stable here. Going
Good.
back to, yeah, so I'm bouncing back and forth now, particularly because my husband's business is now taking him more to the States now again. So he's spending more time there. So obviously I have to. And I've got 3 kids based in the US, 1 kid here in Sweden, but in Sweden. So
Yeah.
this side of the pond. So I think I'm just getting used to going back and forth now more so. And then who knows? When one day I'll be a grandma, I'll be bouncing back and forth even more. I don't know where life is going to take me at this stage.
Yeah.
I'm venturing
Exciting.
into the new chapter again, another chapter, and we'll see where that goes. I never ever am ashamed or afraid to open a door and go in it.
Okay.
It could also
Nice.
be my ADHD. I don't know, but I'm impulsive and I do things that are risky, and that's that's how I've rolled my whole life. So
Good for you. I
yeah,
like that because I remember when I was doing a biography for a lady from Australia. I was interviewing a lot of people in her space, and one of the people I interviewed was her son, and he said that one of the things that they found was looking at her success. Although she grew up within the corporate world of Australia and did very, very well, it was only when she went online and started connecting with people overseas that she really her career really started taking off. And he said
right,
something that you can't be famous in your own back garden. And
right.
this is one of the questions that I know that I've experienced with me growing up here in Britain. I've had a lot more success as I was traveling the world. And then I've come back to Britain. I'm not really I'm well known here for very different reasons and lots of different areas. But as a British author, I'm not very well known in the British author scene. But if I go to Australia, I can be recognized. New Zealand, I'm recognized. When I go like in the States or Latin America, I'm recognized.
Right.
And I don't really have that here yet. And I was like,
That's interesting.
yet on the end of those
Yeah,
sentences.
that's interesting. I mean, look,
Um,
I didn't do this for the fame of it. That
no,
I mean, I like I said, I'm so grateful to my fans
absolutely.
who've actually been so supportive to me, and it just I think the connections are really what made me feel very comfortable here. And yeah, I go back to the States, and I'm obviously I've been on American talk shows, and I've done a lot of that sort of circuit. I've toured the States. I've done Miami, Chicago, LA, Las Vegas, New York, like you name it. And I love doing it. But I feel the most at home in Britain. I'm sure that'll change. I mean, like I
Mm,
said, another chapter of my life is about to start, kids getting married. Who knows? I'm also in talks with an American and Canadian company to potentially take the book into a television series. So, not touch wood
nice.
that actually might happen. Who knows? But that's another corner for me to turn, and maybe that's where I'll put more of my eggs into that basket, and spend more time focusing on that. I just don't know. I don't know where life is going to take me next, but I'm curious to see. I'm like along for the ride.
Let's see
There's
where
no
it
plan.
takes you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to play another song now because you mentioned somebody, Rosala. And I think I believe her song Everybody's Free really does sum you up because you've had this freedom of just moving and flowing. And, you said that you felt very natural in the space there. Would you agree that that would be a great
Oh,
song
terrific song. In fact, she's a friend of mine. I just had her on my
love
show.
her?
I host a podcast called the Gen Experience podcast, like the Gen X experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was a guest on our show this season, and she's a beautiful woman. And I felt so not just honored to like open for her or tour with them, like her and Angie, and like I just felt like I was kind of like I obviously didn't have the kind of extensive career she had, opening up for Michael Jackson. I mean, she was
Mm,
massive, but my life took a different turn. I got married, I had kids, and
mm,
she was still working in trying to get like a record deal. And she even said on the show that she said, look, there was a point where everybody free was so big that she couldn't get another song out there that would even be
mm.
any bigger than that. So at some point, she was looking at to become a beautician.
Wow.
she was about to give it all up because
Yeah.
and then she met
It's a
the love of
great
her
song
life.
though.
Yeah, I
Absolute
mean, yeah,
classic.
she has a great story, and that is a fantastic song, and it is so classic that it's the kind of song that you can play forever, forever, forever.
Yeah.
Even my grandchildren will be dancing to that record.
Oh,
So I think
absolutely.
Everybody's Free is a perfect choice, and I love
Excellent.
Rosella.
She did, whenever I've seen her interviewed or, when you see photographs of her, she always has this poise of grace. And I just, there's looking at certain people who have made it big time and have got all time evergreen tunes like that sometimes I look at them and I go, gosh, there's this gratitude energy from them and this humility that just really endears you to them. And I think she's somebody, when you, like I said, when you look at her, you just see that resonating out of her. So let's go and listen to Everybody's Free.
The choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Rosala with Everybody's Free. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now about your own reading, because this is the Literary Lounge. You have written a book. We've spoken about the book and the songwriting, and I've asked you some questions before you've come on here, and thank you for taking the time to fill them in. And I was reading through, and I was like, "Yep, really like that one. Yep." You have mentioned that when you want pure escapism, you'll happily pick up a Grisham novel. For me, that's like read it in a day and it's done.
Oh, I love it.
Keep writing, keep sending them. But you mentioned that, and I've done some digging because I hadn't heard of this book, When Time Stopped by Ariana Newman, is probably your all-time favorite.
By the way, I stick to my guns with that because I've been asked that before. And okay, I happen to know her from the school gates. Our kids went to school together.
Okay.
But that's not why I'm biased about this book. It's excellently
You seem
researched.
to be the kind of person that if it wasn't a good book, you would still tell them.
Yeah.
In a polite way, of course.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't tell her. I just wouldn't go on about it. I would just, for me, I would just be like, stumm, like I wouldn't say anything. But I've gone on and on and on about it because maybe also because I know her. So when I'm reading the book, I'm also reading it in her voice, which is another thing. She wrote it as if she was doing all the research.
How she spoke.
Exactly. And the fact that she literally, her dad had a whole other life, and she finds out who she really is later in life through the research that she did. It took her to Eastern Europe, and obviously she grew up in Venezuela but educated in the States, and she came over here to London, married a British guy. And so it's just, the story is incredible. I don't want to give away too much. It's really worth a read. It's about how she grew up in Venezuela, and she the time of her father's death, that she at that point she was already living in London, realized that there were parts of her father that she didn't really know, like when he came over after the war, what really went on and who he really was. And it all becomes uncovered through all these connections that she makes and letters that she gets and things
comments
that she
from
finds.
Fellow students that comment on her surname. Did you read that? Yeah, they said apparently there was some of the research I found was it was a Mexican fellow student that said to her that, well, you must be a Jew with a surname like that, and she was like, no, I'm Catholic. But that was one of the things that started to trigger the questions. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
I research.
Yeah, interesting.
So I'm definitely, so it is a book that I'm definitely going to be adding to my list, which is one of the great perks of doing this show, because I get to find out about so many fabulous books.
Well, I can reach out to her if you do want to interview her at one time.
That'd be great.
I can drop
Let's
her
get
a
her
text.
on.
Yeah, I think she would absolutely love it. And her book is world class. World class.
When Time Stopped. I mean, and the thing is that what I've learned about and what I've been reading about yourself, and there is that moment when we do stop and we start looking back through our life. And you're empty nesting at the moment, and you mentioned in your second recommendation that Will by Will Smith, that moment when he is talking about his life, and you wanted to understand the man behind all of those headlines that were around the
because I always loved him. Always.
I mean, how could you not? Will Smith. Always. I mean, I still know all the words to all the lyrics to the Prince of Bel-Air.
Who doesn't? Right? Yeah. Which Gen Xer doesn't? No, but I think after that Oscar slap, I was like, that had to have been staged. I can't even imagine, like, what would have literally gotten into him so so made him so emotional, so like freaked, that he would get up onto the stage and slap his mate. This is a
Mm.
guy that like they actually are friends. And so I read the book after that because I was like, I needed to, you know what? It was good that I did because I really understood who he was. Again, another thing that was written in his voice. Um, and another thing is with audiobooks, like I read and listen to audiobooks, depending on the situation where I'm at, what I'm, so I do love an audiobook, especially if it's narrated by the person that wrote it. So in this case with Will Smith, I read mostly his book. I listened to him on audio for a little bit. And Matthew McConaughey, who, by the way, is
Oh,
like one of
green
the hottest.
lights.
Oh,
Oh,
I love him.
I could
And
have gone to bed with him every night. Brilliant book. I was like, what do you mean the book is finished? No,
yes,
you need.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Mm,
I couldn't put it down. So I like
fantastic.
that. I don't like books that make me like are hard to read. I don't. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I studied Shakespeare growing up, obviously, but it's not something that I would go and pick up right now and read.
Mm,
But my husband does. He likes classics. He can
me too.
reread, Anna Karenina. Like he loves that. I'm not. I like good, solid, easy reading, but that has, like I said, that has a connection for me and
Mm.
talks authentically about relationships. Like I also like with John Grisham, a great crime novel, because I also like to be taken on these journeys where there's a lot of twists and action. It's like you're reading it thinking, okay, well, it's going to be this person, but actually something else happened. And just the way that it's written and
Mm.
how, I find that brilliant. And, I'm still learning as a novice author. I've already written the 10 chapter synopsis for the second book for
Nice.
this, the sequel, and I've got to get motivated to writing it. So we'll see what happens. But being but but reading and listening to audiobooks for me is very helpful as a writer. Also,
Of
I
course it
do
is.
learn a lot. And they always say, even to kids at school when they're teaching writing, they say, read, 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 because
Yep.
you won't know how to write unless you read.
Thank
And so,
you.
yeah. Although, I
Again.
mean, I wish I had more time to read. I'm not going to lie. I'm all over the place, but I do fly a lot. And so I do read when I travel. Holidays is mostly when I get a chance to actually read. But yeah,
Yeah, I can't. People weren't surprised when I became a writer and an author, and then an author coach and a publisher because they were like, "You're just a book nerd. You just read." And before all of that, I
definitely.
am a reader.
Mm.
I've always got books on the go, and they're across genres. I'm reading These Things Happen. It's a Sarah Record story, based in the 80s about the grunge scene that was there,
Okay.
and how that label came about, and then how it kind of fell apart, and all the stories that are around that. I'm reading Donna Tartt's Secret History at the moment, and I've kind of got to the point in that book where it's like I'm probably only 100 pages short of finishing it. It's about 600 words, sorry,
Wow.
pages.
Pages.
And I don't want it to end, but
You don't want it to end.
and I'm there. And like your husband, I like reading the classics, but I also like those really quick, easy reads. My eldest son got me into Sarah J. Maas. Um, the beginning of last year, he goes, Mum, will you just stop reading business and personal self-help and the memoir books and all the books on all the subjects that you're writing about, like trauma and human trafficking? Can you just read something that's not heavy? And I read the Sarah J. Maas first three books in like 2 weeks,
2 weeks.
whipped through them. Yeah, so I do. I find it interesting when I hear about how many books people read, and I remember one young lady who told me she'd only ever read about three books in her entire life. And I, I, I don't understand that world. But
Yeah.
it's
Well, I think there is that world, and I don't know how old that lady was, but I don't know if kids are reading as much as we used to growing up. I mean, we didn't have, I mean, we had television, but we didn't have social media. We
We
didn't
only
have
had
all
four
these.
channels.
Right, exactly. We didn't have like 4 billion channels to choose from, the streaming, and then also the social media with all the, everybody's a celebrity now with their own content, and so like we didn't have this much stimulation
Mm,
with everything else. It was either you go outside and play with your garden hose and a
yeah.
basketball, or you read a book.
Mm,
Unless you're watching television, which usually didn't happen. Like we didn't. I wasn't really. I love TV. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't allowed to really watch TV until like after I did my homework, whatever. And
work
I didn't
when your
really have
daughter
a
done. Yeah.
bedtime. So my parents let me watch TV late at night as long as my work was done, and I could
Yeah.
get up the next morning. They didn't care about the TV. So I would watch television in the evenings, maybe Saturday morning cartoons, but that was it, like,
Mm,
so what else were we doing? We were playing outside or we were reading books,
mm.
but now I think that the next generation, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta, all these youngsters, my God, I sound
Oh,
like an
you're
old
way
person
ahead.
when I say that.
You're way ahead of me with all the gens.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I was a Gen X until about a year ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, now you told me how old you are. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm shocked at how old. I thought you were Gen Z. I mean, so you, yeah. So I, with what we have now, with all these new generations, I don't know how, if they're gonna read like we read. I hope
I
they
think they
do.
do because they're I have an author and her books are selling really well. And even though, because I think that a lot of parents are now realizing that reading is mindfulness. It's that
Yeah,
chance for them to slow down and have a meeting with themselves. It's about unplugging, but actually find, but I
creating
believe
that story and that imagination in
absolutely,
their own
and
head.
making sure that they are switched off and that their energy levels and their eyesight is given a break, and that you're using a different part of your brain. You can actually use your imagination a lot more instead of having everything fed to you. And the the way in which children who do read are actually a lot more productive, um,
Yeah,
and their energy levels and their focus and their attention is a lot more solid, for want of a
yeah,
better word.
yeah.
And you've mentioned this. I mean, we just did touch on my age, and I do get this quite a lot that people think that I'm only in my 30s. I'm like, oh, I don't feel like it sometimes. But people our age, because we are of the same age,
I'm a
uh,
little older than you, but yeah, we're in the same generation.
the same generation.
Yeah.
You You mentioned there about the books that we read. Do you feel that those of us, we we are intrigued about other people's lives, the memoirs now, that looking at how people's journeys have evolved? Do you think that that plays a part in who we are now?
Well, we've, I think it's expanded more so. I mean, with reality television and, like, I think we're so used to seeing people, real people in front of
Mm.
cameras. It all started um, around the time of O.J. Simpson trial,
Mm.
when all of a sudden everyone was glued to the television to watch what was going to happen with OJ, and then from that people realized that what's going on in real life is as interesting, if not even more interesting, than what could be read in a book or imagined, right?
Mm.
So I think
Because you
that,
really couldn't make this stuff up some of the time.
I know, right? You really can't write this. I mean, then you had the Osbournes on MTV and the cameras
Oh
following them around, and
gosh.
then do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it started very. So people are like, I think people, are just naturally drawn to other people's journeys or miseries. A lot of people want to see, well, oh, my life isn't so bad. Look what they've gone through.
Mm.
Like to compare themselves to other people. I don't know, but I think uh I think people like those types of books for the same reason they like
Mm.
watching reality television. I think people just like knowing how the
What
other
they're
half
going
lived.
through. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And also that I mean, I'm editing my third book at the moment, and people are like, well, why would you do that? It became, in the top three on Goodreads for women with ambition and parenting. And I'm like, because when readers have read the book and they've got questions, and I've come back to edit it and work on it 10 years later, and I'm like,
Wow.
you really couldn't make this up, because it was all about when I was arrested in Scotland
Yeah,
twice
you
in two
mentioned
years.
that before we went
Yeah.
on air.
Mm. And
Do I
I'm
have,
really,
can I ask why, or is that
oh,
not?
they accused, I took my boys on a wild camping trip to prepare them for the Duke of Edinburgh Award.
Okay.
And yeah, I left them in the car for about 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, while I went and checked the opening time of the castle. They were 12 and a half and 8 and a half, and we'd just lived through the Egyptian uprising, and we were in the most remote, beautiful part of west coast of Scotland, where they filmed Downton Abbey Christmas special. I knew they were safe. But I got arrested for willful neglect and abandonment, and I think, I'm sorry, don't think so. I was a police assessor at the time as well, Stay. And so I ended up fighting the Scottish justice system. And I'm going through all of the
Were you
notes.
scared? Like, were you like, did they
Oh,
actually
I was
take you away
furious.
from your kids?
Oh, they took them off me and put them into emergency foster care for 3 or 4 days. But I was angry. I was like, you have messed with the wrong mama bear, which is why I found that your story, like, the how this reinvention of self and the things that you're going after and the legacy that you're creating, and the way you wanted to protect your family, like you said at the beginning, from all the cameras and the reality, and the choices that we make as mothers. We make these choices as parents to give our children a better life. And
Yeah.
okay, for me, we're going on a wild camping trip. You're going to learn like survival. You're going to learn how to put up a tent, read a
Yeah.
map. You're going to learn about, to test the ground, and, all of these things. And it could go so badly wrong. And I'm there and I'm reading the notes. I'm like, you couldn't make this up. You really couldn't. And I
So
think,
you wrote the book about that
oh
experience.
yes. Oh, I
Okay.
did. And then some. And but again, my readers loved it, but they wanted to ask questions, and
I
how
have
has it
to read that.
affected your life? Oh, well, I'll send you a copy. And you're reading, your readers' messages to you to say thank you for this. What has been one of the most beautiful messages that you've received, whether it's songwriting or performing or writing a book? Because you are all about connection. What has been one of the most
Oh God,
poignant
I get
messages?
I get a lot of nice messages actually.
Mm,
I think um, when I I had this song out called Flipside, which
okay.
was actually the theme song to my show Stacey Jackson in the 80s, which I did on Sky, like 3 seasons of this show about 80s music basically. And the theme song was called Flipside. And it did really well. It's a commercial dance record, and in fact, it went to #1 on the global radio charts, which is like a digital radio chart, which was huge. And then one day, I decided to do a stripped back version of it, and I never do those things. I do dance music, and we pulled it all back, and I did like an acoustic kind of version of it, and all of a sudden the comments from people were like they actually heard the message of the record,
Nice.
because I guess because it was slower and it just sunk in a little deeper. And so the messages were just like, it's so inspiring to see like that you need to take care of yourself. And the record is the message really behind this the song is about how I've always been there for everyone else. Like if I was a
Yes.
superhero, if I were a superhero, I'd split myself in two, like because I have to always, especially as a mother or a wife, I'm always doing stuff for everyone else first. But now I've got to be there for me. I have to look after myself. And then that brings me back to the whole, if you're not happy within yourself with
Yeah.
whatever, whether it's emotionally, physically, or appearance, whatever, you need to fix that first before you
Yes.
can fix anyone else. It's kind of like when you're in a plane and they say, put the mask on you first before helping anyone else,
Mm,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Hear
And
that
I
loudly.
and it's very important. And so I think when I did the flip side acoustic and got all these really nice messages, also from people who like didn't even know my music, so were just finding that song on its own. I ended up doing another song stripped back. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. People are liking the message. So another song called Soldier, which I wrote about sort of loosely based actually on a story about a man who ultimately came out, but much, much, much later in life after he had a family and uh, then, had the courage to come out of the closet. And that song also stripped back. The message was so much more clear. And so I got the nicest comments and, especially from the LGBTQ community. But it's not really about that specifically. It could be about anybody who's made the wrong decision
Mm.
in life because they were afraid, because they thought that other people wanted them to be a certain way. And so it resonated with the general public actually in a different way, because I took all the dance elements away from it, which by the way, song did great as a dance track, but it became a little bit more meaningful. So I'm now thinking about maybe doing it more often and just stripping back some of the records and writing more sort of poignant messages that hopefully could inspire other people over the years. Who knows? Maybe this is another chapter of my life.
Absolutely. Loads of chapters. But I'm actually going to play that now, actually. I'm going to find that and we're going to play that now for the
Flip
listeners.
side acoustic or soldier acoustic? One of them.
The
Yeah,
flip
sure.
side,
Mm-hmm.
acoustic. I think
Mm-hmm.
that would be a really beautiful song for us to listen to now. So that's what's now coming up, the fourth song of today, the flip side acoustic. Okay. Now, going back to music being your first emotional language, you say that writing allowed you to explore ideas more deeply. Um, and the storytelling. You've mentioned that you've got this podcast, Gen Expression,
The Gen Experience.
Gen Experience. Sorry about that.
That's
Uh,
okay. I like the Gen expression, by the way.
yeah. Thank you. So you, um, sometimes I hear it and I hear something and I'll repeat it back to someone and they'll look at me and go, actually, like when I hear certain people telling me about their ideas for a book, I'll pick a title for them. And they'll just run with it because what I'm hearing back. But with the Gen Experience, when did that come about? Because do you write the shows, the podcast beforehand, like the where the themes are going out throughout the year, or are they very random? Or do you have a strategy in place? And how did that all come about?
Well, very much like you, I love where the conversation takes me. I mean, I'll
Mm.
definitely have an outline. Especially we have guests on the show. So it all started well. Um, I kept getting a lot of people saying, I can't see Stacey Jackson in the 80s here because it was on Sky. If you didn't have Sky, or if you were outside of the country in particular. So we put snippets onto YouTube and whatever, but we couldn't play the music because of copyright,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So everyone's like, oh, you just got to do a podcast, do a podcast. Anyway, I was also co-hosting a segment on Liverpool Live Radio with the host at the time, Roy Bassnett. And he said, well, why don't we just do a podcast? I'm like, okay. Like it just came like that. And so when the show on Sky wound down, I picked it up. Oh my goodness, sorry. That's my mother ringing and speaking devil. Sorry about that. So anyways, so I ended up doing a season of shooting the podcast in Liverpool. And we picked up various different guests, including Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Nice.
Like we had fantastic guests from all walks of life, basically Gen X people who have had a journey and they had a good story to tell. And wherever that journey took them, whether it was in the music business like Rosala, or an actor, or a producer, or somebody in some sort of industry that had something, inspiring to tell. And so then we just filmed the second season, and we did half of it in London and half of it in Liverpool. We have amazing guests on, like I said, from Rosala, Angie Brown. We had Chesney Hawkes.
Oh, there's a name I've not heard from a long time.
My God, he's darling. He's absolutely darling. And we've had some really cool guests. We've had Adam Minto, who is the creator of Revolution makeup. And so basically people of our age who have this incredible journey to tell. And so that's what I like. I like the story. So I do my research, and I'll just put together some questions. And I like to kind of go with the flow, really, where you never know where these things are going to go. I mean, even the guy from Nasher, from Frankie Goes to Hollywood, he actually is now, I don't know what you call them, but he's like paid to speak at funerals about the person who's dead.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Me neither. And yes, that's what he does now.
He's a eulogy reader.
Well, even more so. Like but he gets to know the person apparently, and then like writes.
Oh, wow.
Some sort of a story to tell the audience at the funeral about the
Who
person
knew
that just died.
How did
I don't know, but
that?
I don't know. And he did call it something, but I can't remember. Some bad with names, but he did call it like some sort of like there's a vocation in this. I'm gonna have to Google it, but yeah. So that's what he's doing now with his life.
It's amazing.
Yeah, crazy, right?
And this is the thing that where you say you don't know where you're going to go. When the boys and I say after the Scotland saga, which is what we called it, the boys and I say when we flew to New Zealand for a 5-week holiday, because I had been promising them we'd go and see a couple of my friends. They then flew back, and then I then was supposed to come back a few months later. I was sorting my head out after everything. And then I ended up sailing around the world for 8 years, writing all these books. And apparently I was just faffing around on boats all the time. But I didn't know.
You with your kids?
No, they went home to live with their dad, and then I flew them out to me wherever I was. Right. Well, they wanted to come sometimes. Like, yeah, no, don't want to go there. I was like, oh, okay. But we never knew. I say we, me and my higher self. When you set sail, you have a course, but you don't know if you're going to actually stay that course, because you don't know what's going to happen at sea. You don't know whether, this was going to happen with a boat, or you've got to avoid a storm or what have you. And I would never book in anywhere for when I arrived, because we might have arrived a week early. We might have arrived, a few days late. And so I always used to love that journey of that surprise element and wondering where this is going to take me. Yeah. And I've met so many beautiful people on this journey, as I'm sure you have. And you talked about this support network that you have around you, with your mum and your husband and your friend Ruth, who was helping you with the book. And you mentioned that you're never ready to launch. Has there been somebody else in your life that was a truly unexpected person, that was the one that pushed you over the edge, the one that said, go for it? Whether they did it in a, when you get those people that go, oh, you're never going to do it. Do you have that thing where, oh, I'm just going to show you? Or someone has said something to you that's really flipped that switch or become such a key part of your support network?
Yeah, I couldn't. For me, it would have to be Stephen Machat, the music mogul. He's represented most phenomenal talent throughout his career. He's written a boatload of books. He's run for the Florida Senate position. Like he's like lived it all. His father was very famous in the music industry. He was like one of the biggest lawyers for like Frankie Valli, and like he's he's met and been with everyone. And he was the one that said to me that he thinks that I should do the collaboration with Snoop Dogg. And then after I did this, way before I even got, an offer for a reality show, he said, and you're going to write a book about this one day. And
Nice.
I was like, what the hell are you smoking, Stephen? Because like that is never happening. Okay. So we went back like 15 years, right? And he goes, no, you just see, I know these things. You're gonna write a book about this one day. And the rest is history. So I would say he was like, and it was a very weird encounter with this man. I was introduced to him through someone in the music industry that I don't even know anymore. Actually, I don't. The last time I saw him was probably 15 years ago, and yet Stephen and I have had a long-standing relationship for many, many years after that. And in fact, he was just at my kid's engagement party. So and he was the one that actually foresaw, the sort of future in a strange way, and said,
Nice.
"You're going to write the book." So I never said no. I said he was crazy, but I never said no. And then sure enough, here I am. How
So this
many?
is the second book that you're going to be
This is
writing.
this is so no. This was the first book.
This
Like he
is the
was the one
first
that
book.
told me to
Okay.
write the book.
Okay.
And originally, I was going to call it "For the Record" or "Off the Record,"
Okay.
kind of a play on words for that.
Yeah.
And that was the sort of working title. I wasn't in love with it, so we just let it go with that for a while. And then it was my son who actually came up with it. I think I mentioned to you. He said,
Yeah.
you know,
It's a great
how
title.
yeah. Originally, it was going to be, I think, how Snoop Dogg made me a better mom. But like, I didn't want to. Obviously, I had to fictionalize it for various reasons, and that was
Yeah.
the whole thing.
No,
So
gangster
I,
rapper just
I
leaving it
think
open.
also
Yeah.
gangster rapper is also doesn't narrow it down to one
No.
particular. I mean, anybody who's going to do any research about me in 2 seconds could figure out who the gangster rapper is anyway. And I think it's a cooler sounding.
It is.
Um,
It's very cool to.
yeah,
The
and so
title of
that's
my
some.
first book was given to me. I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my second book. This is probably not going to fly given the political situation in the world, but originally, so the working title was A Vagina in China.
Nice. My kind of book. I already know that.
And it's about when she goes out to like venture into launching a brand of fitness clothing, which I had
Okay.
done many years ago, and it was also a little side hustle. And and yeah, so, and then the third book is also when the character um ends up realizing that she's hormonal. She ends up on HRT. She's now writing for a television series. Actually, it's a film, and stuff happens behind the scenes. And so we've got like the sort of journey of the main character
Nice.
for the next few books, and we'll see where this all goes. Like I said, I've written the 10-chapter outline already, but it could change a bajillion times between
Yeah,
the
probably
first
will.
chapter and the last. Yeah, but at least there's something. And I felt like, at least I've made an effort to get it going, but we'll see.
Will
We'll
you come
see.
back on the show with us for the
Second
vagina
book, well,
and
it's
child?
probably
Yeah.
not going to be called the vagina. I mean, here it's a laugh, but like in America, I don't know, like you have to be very careful these days. And
Yeah,
that was
you
a lot.
do.
Yeah, that was another thing. It's like I had to do a complete check. I am very, like, I speak like, sorry, I write like I speak. So I do swear, I do. And so I needed to cross check and double check how things might become taken out of context
Yeah.
or if I use the term. So, you can't describe the color of anybody's skin, for example. Like, you know what I'm saying? You
Mm.
just, you can't. You have to let any of that, which is fair, right? It makes sense. So I just wanted to go through, to make sure that I didn't say anything that might offend anybody or, and yeah, that was a challenge, especially because culturally things that work here might not work in the US. Also going through whether or not I wanted to write it as a US book,
Okay.
right? Or as a British book, because also the way she speaks and the way she spells is different. So we
Yes.
ended up doing it the British way because I'm also born in Canada, so I felt like let's honor the honor with the O and the U, you know.
Yes.
And so we ended. There was a lot of stuff I needed to like check and balance. Time zone things as well was always a challenge for like continuity in the book. So these were all new things as an author that I had to like learn, because I mean, who knew, right? So, okay, so if it's 8 a.m. in Boston, what time is it here? Like, because she's talking on the FaceTime call with her kids,
Be
and
4 o'clock, wouldn't it?
8 in the morning would be 1 p.m. would be lunchtime.
In
So
Boston,
right,
because
9,
that's
10,
on the
11,
other
12,
side,
1.
isn't it?
Right. So 8 a.m. in Boston would be 1 p.m. lunch here.
Oh, is it five? Is it only 5 hours behind?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it
Boston.
was 8.
Yeah. So you have to be, yeah, exactly. You have to be like cautious, like, where is she now? Right. And, can she actually call her kid? If she's calling her kid, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. She's waking him up. He's got to be groggy. Like, why is he sleeping with his phone on anyway? Right. Like,
Absolutely. Switch off your phone and
right, exactly. So anyways,
notifications.
there was a lot of fun, interesting things that I learned along the way as a newbie author, but I enjoyed the process and it was fun. And who knows what's going to happen with book 2, book 3. Again, an open door process. We'll see where this
I
goes.
love the fact that you've got future books lined up, because there are, and there's nothing wrong with this, but one of my little bugbears, and I've had to do work on myself with this, is when people will just write a book just to get the title of being an author, and they don't write the book themselves, they don't do any of the research themselves, and they call themselves an author, but if you haven't written it, then can you really call yourself an author? It's like when you mentioned that you read and you listen to audiobooks, whereas a lot of people say they read audiobooks. So it's like, no, you read with your eyes, you listen with
Mm,
your ears. And so
yeah.
these are just some fun conversations that we have at book clubs and what have you. Now, you there's so much about you, and I know that we could keep going forever, and I love the fact that your book is such an immersive book and a dynamic book because of the QR codes that you've got in the book with some of the songs that you've written. If we're going to, as we're coming up to the top of the 2 hours, and it's gone so quickly for me, and I've absolutely loved listening to you, and
Oh,
yeah,
thank
I'm
you.
very
No, it
excited to
was fun
follow
to
your
chat.
career. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Would you say that one of the is because we discussed a few of the songs that we'd like to play on the show, and there's two that we haven't allocated so far, which is The Devil with the Gucci On, where we're talking about frenemies, and then there's Better Days, which is the Rappo collab.
Yeah.
Which one would you like to wrap the show up with? And I'll see if we can figure out, because this is recorded, folks. I did say that at the end, and I am going to be putting these songs. I'm looking at how we're going to be putting these songs in afterwards, because I've got
Yeah.
these two songs that I really want to get into the show. So you might actually hear one a little bit earlier. No, you won't actually. Why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? That's not going to happen, is it? You guys know me. You've been with me on this show long enough. We'll probably play these two songs back to back and then just
Back to
see
back.
it.
Yeah. And
See it
you know
into
what?
the
They're
weekend.
they're soundtrack songs, so they're under 3 minutes of,
Oh,
you could
fantastic.
squeeze both of them and no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Before the
So
news and the weather.
Devil with the Gucci On is about it's when the lead character Stephanie sings about how, well, she calls her the bitch of Belgravia, and how she was just so nasty to her, and Stephanie, the character, can't figure out like what she did wrong to deserve this kind of treatment, and not only nasty to her, but to her kids. She's very mischievous and naughty. It all unwinds, and of course in the end, and you kind of do figure out what's been going on, and but so that is the song she sings about this particular frenemy of hers. It's called Devil with the Gucci On. And the rap track is the song, I guess you'll play the reprise version, which is the song that the rapper she ends up collaborating with is sings, and you'll hear her singing on the chorus part as well. And the song is about which is, I wrote the lyrics to the record. I never wrote a rap before either, so it's quite. I think it's so cool. Like even my kids were like, you wrote this." So I co-wrote it with a guy called Gravity, who's phenomenal, and our producer was Craig. My God, see, I'm so bad with names. Oh my
Mushroom
God,
gummies, love.
yeah,
And quite
yeah.
mushroom gummies.
Oh my God,
They're
yeah, I have
amazing.
to. It's terrible. Um, anyway, so Fred, Fred J. Fred J. Yes. Oh my God. See, it comes back to me about like minutes later. And so Gravity and I wrote this, and the message was really to juxtapose the life of the rapper in one song about his journey, how he grew up, and then he ends up collaborating with, my character basically. And so for the first time, you actually get this sort of message that, wait, these two people are from extraordinarily different upbringing, different worlds, different lives completely. And it culminates into music, it culminates into
Nice.
song, and how the two of them ultimately create something that makes people feel something. And so this song was written like that. Anyway, so that's the rap. It's called Better Days. So yeah. And those are the
Excellent.
two songs I guess you'll be ending the
I
interview
will do.
with.
Excellent. Like I said, I've absolutely loved it. And picking up on that point that you've made there, one of the reasons why I love dance music and why I used to love the harder music was it was like those moments you just get lost in it, and it didn't matter where you were from, which language you spoke, which social economic group you belonged to. Music just
Music
brings
is
you
music.
together,
Yeah.
and it is such. And I think that when you talk about connection and then these different paths and everything, it really does, whether you're reading a book or you're writing your music or you're writing a book or your podcast and things like this, it's all about this craft of connection and bringing everybody together. And so I'm really, really grateful that we've been able to showcase you and
Oh, thank
share
you.
your
And I'm so
music. You're very
curious
welcome.
about you as well. Like I'm dying to read your book. So yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, once
Yeah,
I've finished editing this version, I have your contact details, so I'll get you a signed copy sent
perfect.
off to
Oh,
you.
I would love that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
and
Meanwhile, I have to apologize for the artwork behind me on the floor, but we had this terrible leak in my flat, and like proper leak, and we couldn't repair it until it actually dried. And so I was too nervous to put the artwork on
I've
the
got
wall. So I have
moving
it like,
boxes in the background. I wouldn't worry about artwork on the back. I've
do you know,
been
but I only just
full of
noticed it now.
books.
I
I'll
kind
have,
of like
they're full of
I
books.
looked over to the right and I'm like, I have art on the floor. Anyway, sorry. I'm like,
Yeah,
I was distracted because I was looking at the camera or looking at you. And so I'm like, wait, what is that?
beautiful artwork. It is
Yeah,
beautiful
thank
artwork.
you. It's a French Canadian artist, actually. I grew up with French Canadian art. Actually, my aunt she just died actually, 96 years old. And she was a big French Canadian artist, collector. And well, she was also a sculptor and probably
Nice.
one of the biggest mentors, female mentors in my life, actually. She was very inspiring to me. So I'm very lucky I have a team of support of very strong women like my mom and
Mm.
my aunt and my best friends, even my best girlfriends are like my sisters, and they're my people, my husband is my person,
Yep.
but
People is
it does
different.
take a village. Any woman who says they could do it all on their own is full
They're on
of,
a prescription.
yes, correct. They're on those gummies, and not just the mushroom ones.
No,
They're on those gummies.
they're on the good
Yeah.
gummies. Well, how can people connect with you? I mean, obviously, I'm going to put all of your links in the show notes, but for people to
Oh,
get
sweet.
hold of a copy of How a Gangster Rapper Made Me a Better Mama, sorry, better
Yeah.
mom, and how can people connect with you and get hold of tickets for your shows?
Well, the How Gangster Rapper Made Me a Better Mom is, you can order it online at Waterstones or on Amazon. So easy peasy. And it comes with the soundtrack in it. So it's not a separate soundtrack. So that's that. I am on all my social media. My handle is Stay Rocks. You asked me about Stay, Stae. ROX. You know, I just saw on Instagram about someone saying, "This is me at 12 choosing my handle for Facebook," and then it just stuck. And so now I'm like, you know, even though it is Stacey Jackson, my handle is Stay Rocks, and I'm actually performing. I'm doing a guest appearance on at a gig on Thursday night. So I'm not sure when this is going to run, but in London, in Holborn, which I'm really excited about because it's my first time actually performing a full-on strip back. We talked about of some of my songs, so I'm really excited about that. That's this week, and
tour dates be
yeah, I
on your
don't know.
website?
Yeah, it'll be everything will be on my Instagram and my website and all that. So yeah, I'm excited about that, and I think who knows if I'm going back on tour right now. I think I'm really focusing on my kids getting married next week. You know, I gotta get into like
So
mom of the
much.
groom
Yeah,
mode.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and another kid getting married the year after, and I don't know. I think who knows where it's going to take me. I'd like to focus on the book,
Mm.
potentially becoming a television series. I think that's where I'm putting most of my focus, and we'll see where that all goes. And you know, never say never.
No,
Who knows?
always say yes. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up your
Oh,
time to
it's
join
so.
us
Oh,
today.
you are such a doll. It was lovely meeting you, and good
Likewise.
luck with all your stuff. And don't get arrested again. And actually, maybe it'll give you more stuff to write about.
I've already got about 26 books in the pipeline. It's yeah, I'm prolific, but I'm gonna
I'm
try
jealous
not.
of people like you who can just bang out books like that. I could do that with songs. I'm very natural at that, but when it comes to books, it's like I found that was an experience for me. You're probably a natural at it. You just pound them out, right?
Yeah, you don't want to hear me sing though. We've all got
Well, we
our
can
talents.
collaborate one day. You write the book and I'll do the music. That'll work.
I'm always open to opportunities, but yeah, please just know that it's been an absolute joy, and you're always welcome back on the show.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I look forward to speaking with your friend Ariana. I want to make
Yeah,
sure I
I'll text her.
pronounce it correctly. I actually had to look at whether if it was a double A, sorry, a double R and a double A in the middle, because I've got a friend who's from Italy who
Right.
is Ariana.
Oh,
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
just making sure I pronounce things correctly. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's just, an absolute joy to have you, and I'll make sure
Thank
that
you.
everything gets sorted for you very soon.
Oh,
But
thank you
wishing
so
you all the
much.
very best, and good luck at the
Thank
wedding
you.
next week. And yeah, mother of the groom
Oh, I know.
first.
At least I have my dress.
Yeah. Oh.
That's done.
Right then,
Anyway, so
ladies and
thank you
gentlemen,
so much.
I'm now going to take you into the final two songs, which is going to be Better Day with the rapper collaboration and the Frenemy song with Dancing with Her Gucci on. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Literary Lounge with me, Dawn Bates, and Stacey Jackson here on the Literary Lounge. And I will be back with you next week. Many thanks. Take care. Ciao, ciao.